Bill Gates gave away $35 billion this year, but didn't see his personal net worth drop. The founder of Microsoft added $16 billion to his net worth this year, despite giving away over $35 billion to charity, according to Bloomberg. That brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world, behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos. We are not, in some defensive posture, where we are mostly in cash or anything like that, Gates told Bloomberg Television on Tuesday. The strategy that's being used on the investments is to be over 60 in equities. Having 60%, in this case, $60 billion in stocks or index funds, is an aggressive investment strategy for someone of Gates' wealth. The average family office portfolio in North America had about 32% of its assets in stocks in 2018, according to a Kaplan Wealth report. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. But Gates said he's bullish on the United States and global business. You can make the case that the yields aren't very high, but that's true against all asset classes, said Gates. T-bills 10-year are well less than 2%, so there's reason to think absolutely returns for the next decade will be less than they have been for the last several decades. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history. Gates' charitable work is primarily done through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation works to tackle inequality in health and education around the world, the climate crisis and world hunger. The organization works domestically on ensuring all students graduate from high school. Financial advisors warn that just because a billionaire favors a particular allocation, it doesn't mean all investors should follow suit.
Bill Gates gave away $35 billion this year, but didn't see his personal net worth drop. The founder of Microsoft added $16 billion to his net worth this year, despite giving away over $35 billion to charity, according to Bloomberg. That brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world, behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos. We're not, in some defensive posture where we're mostly in cash or anything like that, Gates told Bloomberg Television on Tuesday. The strategy that's been used on the investments is to be over 60% in equities. Having 60%, in this case $60 billion in stocks or index funds, is an aggressive investment strategy for someone of Gates' wealth. The average family office portfolio in North America had about 32% of its assets in stocks in 2018, according to a Camden Wealth report. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. But Gates said he is bullish on the United States and global businesses. You can make the case that the yields aren't very high, but that's true against all asset classes, said Gates. T-bills 10-year are well less than 2%, so there's reason to think absolute returns for the next decade will be less than they have been for the last several decades. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history. Gates' charitable work is primarily done through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation works to tackle inequality in health and education around the world, the climate crisis, and world hunger. The organization works domestically on ensuring all students graduate from high school. Financial advisors warn that just because a billionaire favors a particular allocation, it doesn't mean all investors should follow suit.
All investors would follow suit. Follow suit, 跟随 to act or behave in the way that somebody else has just done, following in somebody's footstep, following your nose, 凭嗅觉指引一直向前，凭感觉行事 following somebody's footstep 效仿某人 follow in somebody's footstep allocate 拨给划给分配给 allocate L 是 add 是 lock 8 动词后置 A State Department spokeswoman said that the aid allocation for Pakistan was still under review. An amount of something, especially money, that is given to a particular person or used for a particular purpose. Allocation, allocate. Allocation. Advisor, 顾问，提供意见者。Advice, 忠告，建议。In Washington, 劝告，忠告。In Washington, the president and his advisors spent the day in meeting. A financial advisor, 财务顾问。Advisor, a person who gives advice. Especially somebody who knows a lot about a particular subject. Financial advisors warn that just because a billionaire favors a particular allocation, it doesn't mean all investors should follow suit. The book ensures his success. Please ensure that all lights are switched off. Ensure, to make sure that something happens or is definite. Ensure, 保证，担保，确保，平等。Equal, equality, 名词。Equality, inequality, inequality. Inequality, the unfair difference between groups of people in society when some have more wealth, status, opportunities than others. Economic inequalities between different areas. There are inequalities in wealth distribution, allocation, distribution means. Equality, charitable 慈善的、行善的、布施的 helping people who are poor in need. His later years were devoted largely to charitable work. Gates' charitable work is primarily done through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation works to tackle inequality in health and education. Health and education around the world, the climate crisis and world hunger. The organization works domestically on ensuring all students graduate from high school. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history. T-bills 10-year are well less than 2%, so there's reason to think absolute returns for the next decade will be less than they have been for the last. Several decades. 这个句子是一个并列句，逗号前表示因为10年期美国国债的收益远低于2%这样一个事实，所以 there's reasons to think 后边省略 that 引导的宾语从句。未来10年绝对的回报率将低于现在过去几十年的水平。Asset classes 资产类别4大类分别为股票投资 equity investment 固定收益投资 fixed income alternative investment 以及衍生品投資 derivative investment absolute 完全的、绝对的、全部的 total and complete absolute confidence absolute trust absolute silence absolute truth. You are wrong, she said with absolute certain. You can make the case that the yields aren't very high, but that's true against all asset classes, said Gates. T-bill 10-year are well less than 2%, so there's reasons to think absolute returns for the next decade will be less than they have been for the last several decades. He is very bullish about the company's prospects. In the bullish mode, 满怀希望 bullish 对未来有信心的、积极乐观的、看涨的、牛市的 bullish, a bullish market, a bear market. But Gates said he is bullish on the United States and global business. Real estate. My father sold real estate property in the form of land or buildings. Typically, 通常一般的 used to say that something usually happens in the way that you are starting. The factory typically produces 500 charity a week. Typical investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. Asset 资产财产 a thing of value, especially property, that a person or company owns, which can be used or sold to pay debts. A thing of value, especially property, that a person or company owns, which can be used or sold to pay debts. The net asset value of the company. The net asset value of the company. Her assets include shares in the company and a house in France. Asset portfolio 股份投资组合。Here are a few things to consider before you make good a part of your investment portfolio. Portfolio, a set of shares owned by a particular person or organization. An investment portfolio, a share portfolio. The Dow Jones Index fell 15 points this morning, a system that shows the level of prices and wages, etc., so that they can be compared with those of previous date. Index, having 60%, in this case $60 billion in stocks or index funds, is an aggressive investment strategy for someone of Gates' wealth. The average family office portfolio in North America had about 32% of its assets in stock in 2018, according to a Companion Wealth report. We are not, in some defensive posture where we are mostly in cash or anything like that. 句子的主句是 We are not in some defensive posture.是插入语 defensive posture 是先行词，后面由 where 引导的定语从句。Equities 普通股 shares in a company which do not pay a fixed amount of interest. Investors have poured money into U.S. equities. Equity 公平正义 equal 公平的 inequity 不公平 The government has adopted an aggressive posture of immigration. Post 放置 URE Posture 态度看法立场处理方式 Your attitude to a particular situation or the way in which you deal with it. Offensive 攻击性进攻性 Defend 防御保护 Defensive 防御的保卫的保护的 Defend Offensive 攻击性 D 向下 Fend 打击Protecting somebody something against a defensive measure. Defensive 防御的保卫的保护的 We are not, in some defensive posture where we are mostly in cash or anything like that. Gates told Bloomberg Television on Tuesday the strategy that's being used on the investments to be over 60% in equities. The founder of Microsoft added $16 billion to his net worth this year, despite giving away over $35 billion to charity. According to Bloomberg, that's bringing Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Net weight, net income. A net amount of money is the amount of that remains when nothing more is to be taken away. Net, gave into something, somebody, gave off, gave into somebody, 屈服、认输、让步 gave off, gave away gave somebody away. 婚礼上将新娘交给新郎 gave away 捐赠 Bill Gates gave away $35 billion this year but didn't see his personal net worth drop. It brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world behind Amazon's Bezos. Eight brains. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds. and real estate. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history. Decade-long. Second largest. It brings Gates'
total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world, behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos.
It brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world, behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate.
Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate.
Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history.
The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history.
The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest history.
Bill Gates gave away $35 billion this year, but didn't see his personal net worth drop. The founder of Microsoft added $16 billion to his net worth this year, despite giving away over $35 billion to charity, according to Bloomberg. That brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world, behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos. We're not, in some defensive posture where we're mostly in cash or anything like that, Gates told Bloomberg Television on Tuesday. The strategy that's been used on the investments is to be over 60% in equities. Having 60%, in this case $60 billion in stocks or index funds, is an aggressive investment strategy for someone of Gates' wealth. The average family office portfolio in North America had about 32% of its assets in stocks in 2018. According to a Camden Wealth Report. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. But Gates said he is bullish on the United States and global business. You can make the case that the yields aren't very high, but that's true against all asset classes, said Gates. T-bills 10-year are well less than 2%, so there's reason to think absolute returns for the next decade will be less than they have been for the last several decades. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history. Gates' charitable work is primarily done through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation works to tackle inequality in health and education around the world, the climate crisis, and world hunger. The organization works domestically on ensuring all students graduate from high school. Financial advisors warn that just because a billionaire favors a particular allocation, it doesn't mean all investors should follow suit.
It doesn't mean all investors should follow suit.